You're not going to like this, but you need to hear it. Most people are not living their own lives. They're following a script, one that was written long before they could even read. Not by their parents, not by society, but by something far more subtle, an invisible force called archetypal energy. From the moment you took your first breath, it was already shaping the way you think, love, fear, and fall apart. And the most unsettling part, you probably think you're in control. But what if the patterns in your life, the relationships that keep failing, the dreams that never quite take off, the restlessness you can't explain aren't coincidences? What if they're echoes of an inner energy trying to guide you or break you down? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." In this video, we're going to rip the mask off fate. We'll uncover how the month you were born might carry hidden codes, deep psychological symbols that silently influence your purpose, your struggles, and even your deepest fears. You'll hear stories of people who lived their whole lives out of alignment with their true nature, until one simple realization changed everything. So ask yourself, have you been repeating the same cycle over and over? Have you ever wondered why your success feels empty, or why love always slips through your fingers? If so, what you're about to discover might not only explain it, it might finally set you free. Let's begin. 1. The invisible blueprint. How your birth month hides the clues to your life patterns. Have you ever felt like your life is quietly circling the same themes, no matter how much you grow, change, or try to move on? You get a new job, but the same inner pressure resurfaces. You meet someone new, but the same emotional distance begins to form. You start over in a different city, yet somehow, you still bring yourself with you. That's not weakness. That's not failure. That's a pattern one so deeply embedded in your unconscious that it feels like it's just who you are. Carl Jung believed that these invisible scripts, these life patterns that replay like songs on a loop, aren't random. They're written in the language of archetypes, ancient psychological energies that shape the way we relate to ourselves, others, and the world. And one of the most overlooked keys to unlocking those patterns is the month you were born. Not as superstition, not as astrology, but a symbol, a symbolic imprint of energy, rhythm, and archetypal tendencies that began the moment you entered this world. Imagine two children born into the same country, the same year, one in January, the other in July. One arrives into a world of frozen stillness, short days, and stark beginnings. The other is born into warmth, abundance, and expansion. Even the environment whispers something different to each soul: work hard, survive, endure. Versus play, open, connect. It's not about the weather. It's about the tone of existence your unconscious absorbed before language, before logic. Jung called it the feeling tone, that early unspoken atmosphere that becomes the emotional backdrop of your life. Over time, these imprints form into archetypes. Some people are born with the energy of the warrior, driven to act, to build, to conquer. Others carry the spirit of the healer, absorbing emotions, tending to wounds, longing for peace. But every archetype has two faces: the light and the shadow. You may be a natural visionary, but your shadow might be the fear of being misunderstood. You may have a gift for nurturing others, but your shadow might be self-neglect. And the pattern keeps playing until you stop and ask, whose story am I living? Let me tell you about Marcus. Born in April, a month of fire and emergence, Marcus always felt the need to lead, to be first, to push forward. In school, he was the one organizing everyone. In his 20s, he launched his first startup. But no matter how many achievements he racked up, something was missing. restlessness, irritability. A subtle feeling that he was always running out of time. Only in therapy years later did he begin to trace the pattern, his archetypal energy. The pioneer had served him well, but it had also become a prison. He couldn't rest without guilt. He couldn't pause without panic. What no one told Marcus was this: even fire needs air. Even leaders must learn to follow life's deeper rhythm. The energy of your birth month is not a label. It's not your destiny. It's a starting point, a blueprint hidden in your emotional DNA, asking to be recognized, not obeyed. So I invite you to ask yourself quietly, what might the moment of my birth be trying to tell me, not as fate, not as fortune, but as a mirror? Because perhaps the reason you've struggled to change is that you've been trying to fix the behavior instead of understanding the energy underneath it. And once you do, everything shifts. You stop forcing change and start living in alignment. You stop fighting yourself and start coming home. Let's go deeper. In the next part, we'll explore the two sides of these archetypal energies, the light that empowers you and the shadow that quietly sabotages you, so you can finally stop repeating what no longer serves you. 2. The light and the shadow. How archetypes shape your strengths and sabotage you. Have you ever wondered why your greatest strength also feels like the source of your greatest suffering? The gift of empathy that helps you care for others also makes you feel invisible in your own life. The ambition that pushes you to achieve leaves you unable to rest even when you've earned it. The creativity that sets you apart sometimes isolates you from those who don't understand. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the hidden side of your psyche that lives just beneath your strengths. It's not evil, it's not broken, it's simply unacknowledged. Every archetype carries within it both light and darkness. The same fire that lights your path can also burn you if you don't know how to hold it. Let's return to Marcus, the April-born entrepreneur, the pioneer. In his light, he was bold, courageous, inspiring. But in his shadow, he was restless, impulsive, and constantly afraid of standing still. His strength wasn't the problem. His unwillingness to see its shadow was. And then there's Claire. Born in October, she embodied the archetype of the harmonizer, graceful, diplomatic, always seeing both sides. She kept the peace at work, held her family together, and smoothed every crack before it broke. But deep down, she hadn't made a real decision for herself in over a decade. Her shadow was self-erasure, losing her voice in the name of harmony. You see, when we glorify the light and reject the shadow, we split ourselves. We live in performance, not in wholeness. Take a moment. What strength are you most proud of? Now ask yourself, when does that same quality begin to hurt you? If you're nurturing, do you know when to say no? If you're driven, do you know when to rest? If you're intuitive, do you sometimes doubt your own clarity? The shadow shows up in the cracks, in the patterns we call bad luck, in the relationships that collapse for the same reason, in the quiet dread that follows success. But here's the paradox. Your shadow isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to integrate with you, to show you the cost of only living in the light. Because the truth is, no archetype is complete without its opposite. The leader must learn to listen. The healer must learn to heal themselves. The visionary must stay grounded. The giver must learn to receive. Here's a gentle truth. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to see yourself completely. That includes the parts you've judged, buried, or run from. Because only when you bring your shadow into the light can you reclaim the full power of your archetype. So pause, breathe, and reflect. What part of your strength has quietly become a source of suffering? What would happen if you stopped hiding that part? Not to be rid of it, but to listen to it. You might just find that the thing you've been avoiding is the key to your next breakthrough. In the next part, we'll gently shine that light even further into the emotional patterns that keep repeating in your life. Not to judge them, but to understand why they've been calling your attention for so long. Because when a pattern won't let go of you, it's often because you haven't fully turned to face it. 3. Breaking the loop. How to recognize and escape repeating patterns. Have you ever whispered to yourself, "Why does this keep happening to me?" It starts with hope. A new relationship, a new job, a fresh start. And for a while it feels different, lighter, promising. But then the same ending arrives, just in a different costume. The same heartbreak, the same disappointment, the same aching sense that you've been here before. And you have, not because you're cursed, not because you're broken, but because you're stuck inside a loop, a repeating pattern rooted deep in your unconscious. Carl Jung believed that what we don't bring into conscious awareness will continue to direct our lives, and we'll call it fate. Let me introduce you to Mariana. She's 38, smart, successful, well-loved by her friends. But in love, it's a minefield. Every relationship starts with fire and ends in ashes. Same story, new face. Her therapist once asked, "What do all your breakups have in common?" At first, she blamed them emotionally, unavailable too, intense, not ready. But then came the harder question. What part of you keeps choosing that pattern? That question cracked something open. Mariana realized she was trying to earn love, proving she was worthy, molding herself into what each partner needed. Underneath her independence was an invisible fear: if I'm not perfect, I'll be abandoned. This fear was older than her adulthood. It came from childhood. And it had become the silent architect of every choice she made. This is how loops are built: an early wound, a false belief, a survival strategy that worked back then, but hurts now. We keep choosing the same type of partner, the same kind of job, the same role in every friendship. Not because we want to, but because something inside us is still trying to resolve an old story. It's the mind's way of saying, maybe this time I'll get it right. But healing doesn't happen by repeating the pattern. Healing begins when you pause and ask, what is this cycle trying to show me? So let me ask you, what is the loop in your life? Maybe it's relationships that start fast and end cold. Maybe it's chasing success only to feel empty when you get it. Maybe it's always being the strong one, never allowed to fall apart. Maybe it's telling yourself, I'll be happy when, yet never really arriving. These loops are not your enemies. They're your teachers. And the lesson will keep returning until you're ready to learn it. Here's the path forward. Name the pattern. Without blame, just notice it. Describe it like a story you've watched too many times. Trace its origin. Ask, when did I first feel this way? What belief about myself was born in that moment? Challenge the belief. If your pattern says I have to earn love, ask, is that still true or just familiar? Choose differently. This is where freedom begins. When the loop shows up again, and it will pause and choose a new response. Patterns lose their power not when they disappear, but when you recognize them and refuse to follow the script. That is what Jung called individuation, becoming who you truly are, not who your wounds taught you to be. So next time you find yourself asking, why is this happening again? Try asking instead, what part of me is finally asking to be healed? Because once you see the pattern, you're no longer trapped in it. You're the author now. In the next part, we'll explore how to move from unconscious reaction to conscious transformation, how to turn insight into power and begin shaping a life that reflects not your survival, but your truth. 4. From reaction to transformation, using archetypal awareness to change your life. There's a quiet moment often overlooked when something painful happens. A harsh word, a disappointment, a sudden silence, and before you can even think, you react. You shut down. You lash out. You walk away. You smile and pretend it doesn't matter. But it does. That moment, fleeting, automatic, is where the past takes over. It's where your old patterns hijack the present. Not because you're weak, but because somewhere inside a familiar wound is trying to protect itself. Carl Jung taught that true transformation doesn't happen by willpower. It begins with awareness, the ability to pause even for a breath and ask who is responding right now. Let's meet Elijah. He's 45, a father of 3, and by all accounts, a good man. But every time someone challenges him at work and marriage, he becomes defensive, cold, distant. He doesn't understand why. In therapy, he begins to connect the dots. As a child, Elijah's voice was often dismissed. So now, as an adult, every disagreement feels like a threat to his dignity. He's not just reacting to his wife or his boss, he's reacting to his unseen past. But when Elijah began studying archetypes, he recognized something powerful. He carried the energy of the protector, strong, loyal, steady. But in shadow, that same energy made him rigid and closed. The moment he saw the full picture, both the strength and the fear behind his reaction, he began to choose instead of react. This is the power of archetypal awareness. It doesn't erase your pain. It teaches you how to work with it. Think of it like learning a new language, the language of your inner self. Once you understand the archetype you're living from, you can begin to steer it instead of being steered by it. Here's how. Step 1. Identify your dominant archetype. Ask, what role do I naturally play in most situations? Leader, caregiver, rebel, teacher. Then ask, when I'm stressed, how does that same role turn against me? Each archetype has light and shadow. To embody it fully, you must see both. Step 2. Witness without judgment. The next time you catch yourself reacting, pause. Don't shame it. Don't fix it. Just witness it. That pause is where the transformation begins. It's like stepping outside the storm just long enough to realize you're not the storm. You're the sky. Step 3. Practice the opposite energy. Every archetype has a missing counterpart. If you're a giver, learn to receive. If you're a visionary, ground yourself in small daily acts. If you're a warrior, cultivate gentleness. Not to abandon who you are, but to complete it. Integration isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming whole. You see, transformation is not a lightning bolt. It's a gentle turning inward again and again until your reactions begin to soften and your responses begin to reflect your truth, not your trauma. You don't become someone new. You return to who you've always been, beneath the armor, beneath the roles, beneath the stories others wrote for you. So let me ask you, what part of you is ready to stop reacting and start responding? What archetype have you been living unconsciously? And what would it mean to live it with intention? You are not a puppet of your patterns. You are the author of your becoming. And in the next part, we'll move from the inner world to the outer one, exploring simple, practical ways to live each day in alignment with the archetypal energy you carry. Because insight is only the beginning. Embodiment is where your real life begins. 5. Designing a life aligned with your inner energy, practical tools for daily awareness. There's a quiet tragedy. Many people carry the belief that knowing is enough. That once we see the pattern, recognize the wound, name the archetype, the work is done. But insight is only a doorway. What matters is how you walk through it. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." So the real question becomes, how do you live differently now that you see more clearly? How do you bring your archetypal energy into your daily choices, not as an idea, but as a way of being? Because awareness without action is like sunlight trapped behind glass. Warm, beautiful, but unable to touch the world. Let me introduce you to Layla. She's 52, and after a lifetime of self-abandonment, she's finally found her voice. Her archetype, the empath. She spent decades caring for others, anticipating needs, keeping the peace. But in doing so, she erased herself quietly, lovingly, completely. When she realized this, she cried. Not because she was weak, but because she saw how deeply her gift had been weaponized against her. So she made a decision to live her empathy from the inside out, to check in with her own needs before tending to anyone else's, to say no without apology, to rest without guilt, to love herself as fiercely as she loved others. This is what it means to live aligned with your inner energy, not to change who you are, but to live as who you were always meant to be. And it begins with small sacred shifts. 1. The archetype. Check-in morning practice. Each morning ask, which version of me wants to lead today? Name your archetype, the leader, the nurturer, the seeker, the sage. Then ask, what does this version of me need to stay in balance? Maybe it's stillness, maybe it's movement, maybe it's courage. Let that intention shape your choices for the day. 2. The pattern journal evening reflection. Before bed, reflect, where did I act from alignment today? Where did I fall into old loops? No shame, just honesty. Patterns weaken each time you notice them. Even one moment of self-awareness is a rebellion against the unconscious. 3. The counter-archetype challenge. Weekly growth tool. Once a week, do something that activates your opposite energy. If you're a thinker, practice presence. If you're a caregiver, receive. If you're a warrior, soften. These moments stretch you toward wholeness, toward a more integrated self. Because your healing isn't just in your strength. It's in what you've avoided, feared, or dismissed. The point isn't perfection. It's integration. The weaving of your light and shadow into a life that feels real, not rehearsed. A life where your choices reflect your truth, not your conditioning. Where your energy flows freely instead of being trapped in roles that no longer fit. So I leave you with this. What would your life look like if you stopped performing who you think you should be and started living as who you truly are? Not next year, not when you've healed everything, but now imperfect, beautiful, and honest. Because the energy you were born with isn't just a pattern, it's a compass. And the more you learn to read it, the more your path begins to make sense. No more loops, no more chasing. Just the slow, steady unfolding of a life aligned with your soul. This is the end of the beginning. The journey of self-awareness is never about reaching a destination. It's about learning how to walk with your whole self. Every day, every choice, every breath. Now ask yourself, what part of me is finally ready to live fully? Before you go, I want to ask you something simple but powerful. Take a moment, breathe, and now tell me in the comments, which part of this journey spoke to you the most? Type 1 if you're beginning to recognize a life pattern that's been repeating and you're finally ready to break it. Type 2 if you've seen the shadow side of your archetype and you're learning how to bring it into balance. Type 3 if you're committed to living each day more aligned with your inner energy, no longer chasing but becoming. Your number is more than a comment. It's a signal to yourself and to others walking this same path that you're choosing to live more consciously. And if you feel called to share a few words, your story might be the mirror someone else needed today. If this video sparked something in you, share it with a friend who's been asking deeper questions about themselves. Let this message ripple outward. And if you haven't already subscribed to Cogito Anima, where every video is an invitation to go deeper, to think more clearly, and to live more truthfully. Because the world doesn't need more perfection. It needs more people who are awake to who they really are. See you in the next video. Until then, stay curious, stay kind, and stay true to your energy.